A very good evening and a warm welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. We're coming to you from the Kampala Serena Conference Center, Nile Room. And tonight we'll be talking about epilepsy, really seeking to understand epilepsy. Just to give you a few statistics before we start, about 50 million people in the world live with epilepsy, making it the most common neurological disease. In Uganda, 1 in 10 citizens are documented, and the numbers are estimated to be higher. Today in studio, we host Nina Mago, who is the founder of Purple Bench, a foundation that raises awareness for epilepsy. And she's also a victim of epilepsy, and she'll be sharing with us her story. We also have her mother, Anita Mago, who is the program director, Integrated Development Organization. I got that. Okay, and then also we're joined by Dr. Joel Kiriabwire, who is a neurosurgeon at Mulago Hospital. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, let's say it as it is. All right, thank you all once again for coming to the show tonight. It can't be an easy conversation. I was actually surprised when I met you, Nina, and you wanted to talk about this. So I'm going to start with your mother because she was there before you could understand the thing. Anita, when did you first realize that something was happening here that needed attention?
Yeah, it was when Nina was still a baby, when she was still very young. One was that when she went to the baby class, would find her, when you go to pick her up, would find her, somewhere behind, sleeping, and she was like turning blue or something like that. And then the teachers would say in Luganda what they call eyabwe. I don't know what that means exactly. And then after that, as she was growing, she would come, she would come and rush you and hold you very tight. And then you say, it's okay, it's okay. And then she would sleep for a few minutes, and then she would be fine. So something was wrong right from the very tender age, but at that point we didn't know what it was.
Did you ever find out what eyabwe is? Does anybody know what eyabwe is?
Eyabwe is usually a Luganda term used to refer to somebody who gets seizures. They are seizures which occur in children and most commonly related to either malaria or any disease which causes a temperature. When the temperature goes up, the child has a fit seizure, and they refer to it as a Yahweh.
So the teachers knew, but you didn't know. At what point did you put a name to it and say, okay, let's go to hospital? Or
well, that continued. It would come quite often, and then until when we went to Mulago, and they had to use the EEG. And then that's how they found that the resonance wasn't the normal one. Yes.
So what happened after that? Is there a certain way you had to manage? Is there a certain way things had to change?
Well, from that point we had to be very, very cautious of what she was doing, what was happening around her life, and we used to say, don't make her laugh, because maybe that was whenever she got excited.
Well, don't make her laugh now.
No, she's okay. She can manage now. Yeah, so whenever she was excited, I think whenever she was excited, something would happen. So maybe it was excitement that was the trigger for this, and we managed it by using medication which was given at the hospital.
Nina, at what point did you don't want it to be called a what?
A fit.
Why don't you want it to be called a fit?
Because it's not right. The right word is seizure.
Okay, when did
fit
you...
makes it seem like you're a misbehaving child.
Throwing a tantrum.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. When did you first get the impression that, there was seizures happening or something was amiss?
Well, funny enough, it's like going through or growing up, I knew that there was always something wrong. And that's why I would always run up to my mom, my dad, or whoever was around. But we never talked much about it. So I was left to kind of wonder what it was that was going on. And usually when you get a seizure anyway, you're not conscious of what is happening. So all the conversations surrounding that condition would be there while you're asleep. So when you get up, you know, it's the normal life, and then everyone is back to what they're doing. But the first time I actually got to notice something of that kind, or to see someone who ever had a seizure, was in my S4.
What did you see?
I saw a girl who just kind of pushed away the table and got really stiff and fell to the floor. And at that point, everyone was running, and so did I.
You also.
Yes, I also ran. That was the very first time I saw someone. But at that same time, I still didn't know that that is what was happening to me anyway. But I do remember one thing in particular is going back home and telling my dad about what had happened. And his reaction, his glassy eyes, and he said, "What did you do when this happened to this girl?" And I said, "I ran like all the other kids." And he kind of turned away and walked off while he was talking to me. And it was only later that I noticed why he reacted that way and said, "Oh my God, he had been seeing this all my life," literally.
What do you do now when you see somebody having a seizure? Have you seen someone now that you know?
At the moment, I actually haven't seen anyone who has a seizure or having a seizure, but I have met some people who have the condition, yes.
Okay. Dr. Joel, I know that for a lot of people, I mean, they run away. And I know that society has told us that when that's happening, there's a demonic attack happening, it's witchcraft, it is things like that. And yet medicine tells us this is actually a thing in the brain.
Yes, it is a problem in the brain. The brain is like any electrical appliance, and it sends out electricity, as I like, that's how I explain it. It sends out electricity in an orderly fashion, and that's how we move, that's how we coordinate things. Those are what we call impulses. Now, if you have any area in the brain which doesn't coordinate with the rest, then you get a spark, and that spark is what you see as a seizure. Now, it becomes very difficult when we combine that with discussing witchcraft and the metaphysical, because, you know, for medicine, we know that seizures are a medical condition which require treatment. And actually, when you do treat somebody who gets seizures, they get controlled. We don't talk about them getting better because it's long-term treatments like blood sugar, like high blood pressure, but actually you get controlled. You have your medicine, you take it well, you live your life normally.
So why is it that we've been conditioned to think it has nothing to do with medicine?
It's because
that
of
parents will take the child off the medicine and take them, you know, just...
It's culture. It's where we came from. It's the fact that to the people who do traditional medicine and the science of witchcraft, it has always been associated with one of those problems. And so all of us get this impression behind our heads that, you know, there's some demonic something happening. To make it worse, it is very mysterious. Somebody who has been well a few seconds ago suddenly seems to go to the brink of death and suddenly stops and comes back. That is always going to have questions asked.
Yeah.
So that's the association, and it's one of those associations that we need to kill because it affects so many people who have epilepsy.
Did you, Anita, did you ever at any point feel that society looked at you different when, because of Nina having seizures?
Well, not really, for the simple reason that this is something we never talked about. We are just like other people that, you know, they keep it to themselves. Nobody knows. Because when, you know, when people see the person who has got an attack, then they fear that person. They are, you know, you are stigmatized, you are discriminated against and all that. But for us, we had this issue under control, and really, like other medical conditions, you just don't go telling people, I have this condition, or my daughter has this or that, you know. So that's what it was. We never talked about it, like she said in the beginning.
Nina, did you ever feel discriminated at any point?
Yeah, especially in school. School was rough. I remember we came back and they made sure when we were coming back from Moscow that I had a soft landing, so to speak. But in Moscow, all the kids knew what to do when I was feeling a certain way. And my teachers knew the same, and the maids knew the same. But upon coming back to Uganda, it was like, it's hard to describe, but school, this time round, you know, because I used to run to my teacher when I was feeling the seizure coming on. But this time I ran to the teacher and the teacher ran away from me. So when the teacher ran away from me, I was like, what's going on? And it's only a short period of time before you actually, you know, don't know what's happening. So I would wake up on the floor with kids watching me through the windows and me failing to understand what exactly happened, but I'm bruised, and then I have to walk back to the dorm, and the matron is asking me, "Gwema goba dewa." And I couldn't even explain it to her. So, yeah, and being in school and taking medication was also a little difficult. And the truth is I wasn't taking it the right way, because it would be given to me and I would say, but now these pills that I'm supposed to take on a daily basis, let me get these pills and put them in this bottle of water so that they just drink it. So I kept having the seizures even with the medication.
Did you, Anita, when you took her to school, when she'd come back, and I would really like to have the background story of going to Russia, but when you took her to school, was it something that you explained to the teachers or the matron that,
oh, yes. We explained, and we said because she had another condition of asthma, she had the inhaler and her emergency medicine for the asthma, but then she also had this regular medicine that she was supposed to take. And surprisingly, we explained to the teachers, of course, and the matron that she had to take this. But all these things that used to happen, she never used to tell us. And they would just tell us that your child is ill, but we said, what's the problem? And they wouldn't tell us. So I think she was neglected or ignored on that line.
Okay.
That's why she tells you that, oh, these regular tablets, because if she was being guided by a nurse, a matron or somebody, they would be giving this medicine to her on regular, basis. But she was taking control of it herself and said, why take all these tablets daily? So she puts them in the water, and we didn't know. She talks about this in adulthood, that she used to do this at school. So, yeah, there we are.
Well, let's take a short break and we'll be right back.
We offer professional barber, hairdressing at Lugogo Mall, Garden City, Forest Mall, Oasis Mall, and Acacia Mall. Sparkle Salon, professional, affordable, and quality services.
Welcome back. We're coming to you from the Kampala Serena Conference Center Nile Room, and we're talking about epilepsy tonight. Dr. Joel, I need to ask you, when somebody is having a seizure, I keep trying to refrain from saying nothing. When someone is having a seizure, what do you do as the person near them?
First is not to run away, because those people are very vulnerable at that stage. I need to kill a myth. There's a myth going around that if you get in contact with the patient or anything like the saliva or anything like that, you're also likely to get epilepsy. Epilepsy is not a condition that you can pass on. It is a condition for that patient, and they cannot give it on to you. So you can help them without any problems whatsoever. When they get a seizure, the thing that is a big problem, there are two things which are big problems. One is that they tend to fall. So you want to prevent them from falling. And that's why she would do well, because when she ran and held somebody, that was her support. When the person ran away, she got bruised. So you need to have this scenario where you either are going to hold them or you put them down, which is preferred, on a floor. There's a different way we look after a patient and how you would do so in the community. In the community, we discourage people pushing anything in the mouth.
So it's just to put back their head
Just
a little
bit.
and so they can get air.
If you're really concerned that they're going to bite their tongue, then you put the tip of the spoon at the teeth, just to prevent the teeth from being able to bite the tongue. But when you push it into the mouth, then you get into a problem. So the best thing is just back, clean the mouth, keep it clean, and keep them on the floor or on a bed where they cannot hurt themselves.
Okay. Well, Nina, you were speaking about your experience while you were in Moscow, about how you were handled. Tell me about how different it is from when you came back. What was it like there?
So when you're in Moscow, it's like having a condition and not really thinking about it much anyway, because everyone understands. So I kind of grew up thinking that it will always be about me feeling a certain way and then running up to an adult and then, you know, that would be it. Because I remember there was once when I was in the office, I was in one of the people's office in the embassy, and I was enjoying the chair, spinning, and that triggered my attack. But I woke up with the lady who had been cleaning, and she was holding me and she was asking where our house is, so that she could just take me back home. But that never happened here. Here it's when you get the seizure, everyone is running off, and then you're by yourself, literally. Whether you hit your head, being female in itself can be a hazard for you to be having a seizure and you're on the roadside.
Like you said, you don't know what happens in that.
You don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
What informed the decision to go to Moscow, Anita?
Well, going to Moscow was just an advantage for us because it's her dad who worked in the foreign mission and he happened to be posted there. So we took advantage of that to get her medically checked out and looked after.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the difference between the medicines and the care?
The medicines and the care, medically I wouldn't really be able to tell the difference between the medicines or anything, but it's just that having the condition and being a child when everyone is still giving you that attention as a child just made me live that life as a child. Well, it was a bit different here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it have any impact on the brain?
Yes, seizures do have an impact on the brain. The length of the seizure and the nature of the seizure is very important. What do I mean by the length? If it's going to last a very long time, most seizures rarely go beyond 5 minutes. Most of them are under 1 minute. That kind of seizure doesn't affect the brain very much. The one which goes for long periods of time is a problem. Now, there are also patients who get repeated seizures. Gets one, then after a few minutes, another one. And that cumulatively can also have a problem on the brain. Now, the last bit, which is very important, is that even if you get one seizure a day and you do it for 20 years, 30 years, over time, it will affect your brain. So ideally, the best way of protecting the brain is by treating it.
Are there particular, so when Anita was saying that they thought it was activity that was exciting activity that would get you that way, are there things you'd tell someone who has epilepsy not to engage in activities?
Epilepsy, even though it is very universal, it's also very individual. The things which spark off epilepsy in one person may not necessarily spark off epilepsy in another. So you really have to understand your condition. And I think that's one of the things that most likely in Russia you found easier. Because people will talk to you, make you understand, not to tell you I think you're sick, this is the medicine,
Don't
go
do
home.
it, yeah.
So you need to understand the condition and understand how it affects you and how you can impact it. Two is that, let me get where my train of thought is. So you need to know how to impact it. That is, now I've lost my train of thought.
Okay.
That's not a seizure.
we're going to come back to that one. Yes, you need to say something?
I mean, personally, like you said, you kind of need to know how to handle
the
your own
triggers, yes.
condition, because some people's seizures are triggered by, let's say, the lights, flickering lights. Some people, it will be a lack of sleep. Some people, it will be particular wavelengths of, sound could easily trigger a seizure. Some people, it's just literally just noise. When a person makes noise, they're going to have a seizure. So there's so many little different things. It could be something you eat. It could be in your diet, that whatever is causing your seizures is actually in your diet. So it has to be very particular. Even when a person has a child who has this condition, every time you feed, you have to take time to see if anything comes off whatever it is that they eat.
Do you know what causes your seizures, or what used to cause them?
What I would like to think it was more stress, because every time I found myself in a situation where I was really sad, then it always happened. But at the same time, when I was really excited, I remember there was a time in school when I knew what my dad's car sounded like. So he came to school when we were at assembly, and I heard his car, and I was so excited. The next thing I remember, I was in his car and we were heading home, because I had gotten a seizure, and I was so upset because I kept trying to tell him that I'm sorry that I got us in this situation, but all I could hear was his voice saying, "It's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. We're heading home, it's going to be fine."
So I need to take on where I had stopped, because it's true that extreme emotion can cause it, and she did mention the other triggers. So it's important to know what trigger you have, what will trigger your epilepsy. There are things which we discourage though, things like contact sports, things like very violent movies, where there's blasting everywhere and there are lots of flickering of lights.
Yeah.
We discourage that. And then of course you have to to be able to manage extreme
Emotions.
forms of emotion. Yes.
How are you doing now?
I'm doing very well.
You said it's been, what, 13 years?
Yeah, about 13 years.
What are you doing right?
The medication, I got the right medication. Like I'm not a doctor, but Dr. Joe will probably tell you that as much as there's so many seizures, even the medication for that particular type of epilepsy can also be a gamble to find. So they have to keep checking and knowing that this is what might work. Let's try this. Let's try this. So I just happened to be lucky enough to get, I guess, the right medication for my particular seizures.
And you've been taking, are you still taking medication?
Oh yeah.
13 years later, you're still taking medicine.
Many years to come, I'm still taking medication.
So you basically sort of live on the medicine. If you stop it, you start all over again?
Yes, medicine is divided into two groups. There are those which you treat and people get better. Malaria is one of those.
Yeah.
And there are conditions that you live with and we control. Now, epilepsy is in that group of diseases that you live with and we control, like diabetes, like blood pressure. And so yes, she needs to be on medicine and she needs to take it every day. It's true that there are very many types of medicine, and it's not really a gamble when she says that there's a gamble to get the medicines right. What she's actually trying to emphasize is the fact that you need to sit with your doctor and work out what is best for you. Now, many parents and relatives, you go to see a doctor, gives you medicine, the next day you get a seizure, you go to another doctor because you feel that doctor has not been able to control them. And that is wrong, because then you start a process again. You need to get a good doctor, stick with that doctor, and work with him until we get to that combination that will work for you.
Okay. Anita, did you ever feel like, did you ever ask yourself, what sparked this? What led to this?
To her having the seizures?
Yeah.
Well, from understanding the many causes that and many of them not yet known. I think it was to do with her birth, the time of birth, because one, she wasn't delivered when she was supposed to have been delivered. And it was an induced delivery. So I believe something might have gone wrong then. Yeah.
That's what you thought at that point. Did you ever
No,
speak
no.
to somebody and have...
That's what I think, because I've also been reading around this, because I'm working in communities where there are quite a number of people who have this condition. So I've been reading around it.
Okay.
And I think hers was to do with the way she was born.
Could this be a thing?
Yes, the way you give, the way that delivery process goes is very important for a child. They are very critical moments, and that's why it's good, to have a medical professional when you are delivering your child. And decisions are made. For instance, you have decisions where they have to do a seizure, and mothers say, no, I have to push because this is a cultural thing, I must push. And that can cause problems for your baby. So it's important to have a medical personnel and to follow what they say. Yes, you can also have problems before even delivery, something that happens in the womb. And those ones you don't usually have very much control over. And then you can have issues afterwards. Have an accident, damage your brain, you get seizures after that.
You were speaking about the different types of seizures before, during the break. And you mentioned, I don't want to preempt you, but let me just say, one of the ones you mentioned was someone forgetting things.
Yes, there are very many types of seizures. The one that we tend to know, and the one which is common and talked about a lot, is what we call the grand mal seizure. It is the patient jerks. It's very dramatic. They fall down, they jerk, and everyone runs away because they think something bad is about to happen. Then they go silent, and then they think they are dead. Then they wake up. Okay, that is the grand mal, what we know. But seizures can be very subtle. They can be what we call absence seizures. We're talking together, then I seem to go blank, and what's happening? What's happening? Then I come back, and I can even start from where I stopped and continue. So it can be as subtle as that and as dramatic. So you have to be careful as a parent. If you have a child and there are things which are going on that you really don't fully understand, the best thing to do is to see a doctor.
Okay. What did I want to ask you? I had to ask you about managing Nina when she was, after you found out now, what extra steps did you take as a parent to help her?
Well, we had to, because we in the younger stages, we didn't know the exact, the triggers. So we made sure she didn't go near a fire, because that's what we used to hear, that they fall in the fire. We used to protect her against things like that. Going to the kitchen, let her do what she wants, but you are watching her. Going swimming, you're watching her. We really used to keep an eye on her, and
Going to bed early.
Yeah, going to bed early and monitoring all the time. Actually, all the time we used to monitor, but it's just that we thought things were fine when we came back, that she kept her secrets that was happening at school. So
Medicine in a mineral water bottle.
yeah, that was a classic.
All right. Let's take another short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. We're coming to you from the Kampala Serena Conference Center Nile Room, and we're talking about epilepsy tonight. You were talking about being bullied, and your mother wanted to say something. Yes, Anita, the school.
Yeah, usually when you take your kid to school, you trust them with a certain teacher or somebody that look after her, and then that's the person you expect to be reporting actually more about, informing you about what's happening with the kid. But instead, Nina said, don't tell these people, because when you tell them, they like harassing her and not, really looking after her as it is. And we heard this from many kids. So it's a bit of a challenge for the kid when she has a condition and you don't get the reports actually, because I never used to know what was happening.
And she was
Not
in a
from
boarding
her
school.
and not from the teacher.
Nina, what were your biggest challenges? I know bullies were one of them.
Yeah. I think as you continuously have seizures, you continuously lose your confidence. I remember sitting down with Anita and asking her how I was doing in school.
Did you call your mother Anita?
Yes.
Okay.
And asking her how I was doing in school, and she said, you were doing very well. If anything, we actually thought you were going to become one of these Russian scientists. And I couldn't believe it, because ever since I came back to Uganda, I just wasn't doing well in school. I couldn't even put my hand up, because I would put my hand up to answer questions and then the kids would laugh at whatever answer I gave. But if I gave this same answer to my friend who was sitting next to me and she gave the answer, then it would be okay. So I lost a lot of confidence and then became really withdrawn.
And you were talking about losing friends.
Yes. Because today I have a friend and we're talking and we're having fun, and then I have a seizure tomorrow, and then this friend doesn't want to come next to me anymore. So I never kept many of them during that time when I kept having seizures. And having the condition and moving maybe to another school meant now you have to closely guard this secret all over again. So it kept happening, and in fact, at the point where I decided to talk about it, I was just simply tired of living the lie.
At what point did you decide, let me start talking? For me and for the people who might be like me and are afraid to speak.
Probably 2 years ago.
What changed?
Like I said, I just got tired of living the lie. I felt like I never was able to do all the things I wanted to do, because this epilepsy thing was always at the front. I always thought to myself, so what happens if I go and try and get this job or whatever, and then they find out that I have the condition, then it won't be there anymore. So I carried that on for schools, for friends, for everything. And it just was a barrier for me. So I just got to that point where I did not care if I was going to lose any friends or fail to make any more. I was just simply tired of living that type of life.
You said kids used to bully you in school.
Yeah.
What kind of bullying was that?
They'd call me names, and I was fortunate enough to have this birthmark as well, so it was just double trouble, really. So yeah, they would call me a witch, they would say I was possessed, they would say all these things, and much of the time that they were saying these things, to a certain degree, I just kept thinking, who are they talking about? And I always looked for the person that they were talking about. Because I said, why are they saying all these things to me? Like, why are they doing this? I remember there was a point where one person got a hold of my inhaler and threw it over the wall. Because I should die and just be, it should be the end of me. So it was hard.
You never told your mother about any of these things. What's the point of school counselors?
There was none.
School
Had
nurse?
I known about one, I think it would have made life much easier. If anything, that is one thing I really recommend in every institution. There should be someone that someone can talk to.
What would you be your thoughts, or what would you say to a mother, Anita, who was a child with epilepsy, and it's a thing they don't talk about, or they don't know how to handle them? What would you tell them?
Well, I would advise parents, like I'm already doing in the communities, advising them to go to seek medical attention for the kids, because many of them say these are spirits, these are demons, we've got to go to church and pray overnight, but it doesn't really solve the problem. And even going to witch doctors, many of them think that maybe they are, like the kids say, ebye wawe or empewoze wawe, you know, that these are, they have to go back to the ancestors. That is the ancestors who are causing this. Yeah. I really appeal to everybody to seek medical attention, because this condition can be controlled and a person lives a normal and fruitful life.
Okay.
Yes. And in fact, I also advise to give support to anybody, whether it's your child or anybody you find by the roadside, to give them support, because that's all they need in order to overcome that, that challenge they have at that particular time.
Dr. Joel, is there at any point that epilepsy can lead to a disability?
If you are poorly controlled, then over time, you will affect the way the brain functions, and that will lead to disability. And many of the families who keep their children in the back, in a room hidden somewhere, are actually just heading down that road. The other way is, of course, hurting yourself in a way that leads to disability. So yes, you can.
Okay. Also, there's the thought that with age, as you grow older, that epilepsy just sort of phases out and you become a...
There are some people where it does happen, and the mysteries of disease processes that we don't understand fully. There are some people where it does happen. But on the whole, I don't think that when we're discussing epilepsy and trying to understand it, we should put a lot of focus on that group of people. I think generally speaking, we are looking at, I mean, it's the same thing for diabetics, the same things for hypertensives, asthmatics. Those are small groups. Majority of people, you need to take your medicine, you need to take it every day, you need to take it for life. When you get that ingrained in your mind and you're comfortable with it, then you can do anything you want.
Okay. Nina, tell me about the Purple Bench Initiative. I see you got everybody here wearing purple. Doctor, your mother, did she send you instructions on what to talk about?
I think mom, but not for me.
Okay.
So the Purple Bench Initiative is an initiative that I started up when I was ready to start talking about epilepsy. Like I told you, it's so stigmatized, and I was literally looking beyond just me, because there's so many people who I have talked to, groups of people who sit down and say, I am so sorry for everything that I ever did to my maid, because, you know, I sent my maid away because she had the condition, you know, things of that kind. So the organization is literally here to support people who have this condition, and also advise for them to go for medical attention. So it is that the more we talk about it, the more sensitization is there about epilepsy, the more it will become less of a myth, the more we'll have actual facts about it and not what everyone thinks epilepsy is. And of course, we've done some work in schools, and I think schools are amazing places to start off with talking about epilepsy, because the kids know so much, yet they just don't know what the name of this condition is. They can tell you what frightens them about the condition, because this man fell on the roadside and then they thought he was dead, and then he stood up. And you can see how shocked they are about it, yet they know, or when you let them know at an early age, they'll know that it's not witchcraft.
Well, we're in the season of resurrection, so...
Right. How is that going to help?
Okay, well,
So,
what do you see for the Purple Bench? If you had to say a thing that you'd like it to actually do for people with epilepsy?
I think I would like it to give people who have this condition a different family. A family in which they fit. Only because even I, as having my own family, had challenges of feeling like they don't understand me, regardless. They did everything they could, they gave the support they could, but we never talk about the social aspect of this condition. We're always talking about the medical aspect. If anything, it's only the doctors. That's why every time you have to go and see your doctor, that's where you find peace, in sitting and talking to them, because you feel they understand you. But we need that out of the medical sphere so that it can help people understand what the condition is.
Well, Dr. Joel, beyond prescribing medicine, and what else should doctors be doing for patients of epilepsy when they come in?
As I mentioned, epilepsy is an individual disease, and you really have to have this in-depth discussion about triggers, about what to do, about even to some extent go past the stage and talk about how to handle society.
Yeah.
Because we haven't yet got that strong support around, and I'm happy about Purple Bench because I think she's entering into that gap. But we don't have that strong support structure around epilepsy, and the doctor now becomes that structure. So from our side, we do have to prescribe, but you have to go into the educating.
You have to be counselors.
Counseling. Yes.
But how many doctors have the time to be counselors as well?
Of course it is difficult because there are people waiting outside. Whenever Nina enters my office, it becomes a problem. But there is a need for that. And I think what we need to do, on top of just putting the pressure on the doctor, is to actually create those support structures.
The Purple Bench.
The Purple Bench.
All right. And then, Anita, what more do you think you could have done, looking back on her earlier years as a mother?
Well, like I mentioned before, like all diseases, you don't go talking about your own medical condition and so on. But I think we need to be more open, go to the doctor. I think they are our starting point, really.
To help you understand it, really.
Yeah.
So that when you're talking about something, you know what you're talking about. So you would have gone to a doctor, and so...
What would you have done different?
No, I don't think there's anything I would have done different, really, because I went to the doctor, but socially, I thought because the kid who has the condition is in the hands of the teachers, and I thought that was it. But I think we shouldn't take things for granted. As far as young people, especially young people who have this condition, even if it's a relative where you've left this kid, don't take it for granted, because they need more support than the physical support. Like Nina was saying, we did everything, but there was still something lacking. Because now that she talks about sharing information with other people who have the condition makes all the difference. So I think with the Purple Bench, where other people will be able to come in and share, I think that will make a difference for them.
Nina, 2 sentences from you to close us.
I'm happy that we're at a point where we have started talking about the condition. And I'm of the belief that as this continues to go on, life will be much better. And I stand by the quote, living a life lived in fear is a life half lived.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us for the show tonight.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of it all. Thank you to our studio audience. Coming up is NTV Weekend Edition.
Monthly basic bouquet subscription of 18,000 shillings before it expires. Then enjoy 3 free days only on StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.